The Alt Fantasy Sports Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is presented by WynnBET. WynnBET is now live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia. From boosted same-game parlays to live in-game odds, WynnBET has what you need to win. Sign up today, bet $100 and get $100. SportsGamblingPodcast.com/WynnBET. That's SportsGamblingPodcast.com/WYNNBET. State restrictions apply.
Nova Production.
And welcome to the Week 2 edition of the Alt Fantasy Sports Podcast. I'm Adam Pelletier, and that is Justin. Brian Scott is still better than Luis Perez. Mark.
He is. I'm not going to back down from that. Adam, week 1 in the books. We all thought we could put our fantasy teams together, and some of them for me worked out. Some of them did not. How'd you do this weekend?
Not as well as I would hope. I think I was 1-3 this weekend, but part of that was also because I ran into like 120-point buzzsaw in week 1, and I was just floored that they put up 100. Well, they had Jeff Bidet, the Roughnecks defense, or the Renegades defense, and Luis Perez. So it was just, what am I going to do? He's got 75 right there from 3 positions. What are you going to do? It's really hard to make that up. I scored 55, which is respectable in spring football. Like, let's just remember that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh God, it was a rough weekend for me. 1-3, not what I wanted to do, but what's you going to do about it?
It's spring ball, though. It's all about adapting, and that's what we're going to help with, right?
Yeah, I mean, so let's get into it. Let's just talk about this. First impressions, we opened up on Saturday with the Vegas Vipers and the Arlington Renegades going head-to-head. Scant crowd. Texans scared of weather with their football, apparently. I'm shocked high schools don't play in domes in Texas.
No doubt, especially with how big football is there. That crowd was disappointing. I thought there would be a better turnout, especially since that is the hub.
I mean, it is what it is, but, in the game, we were all, you, me, everybody was like, the Renegades offense is going to be it. But we were assuming it was going to be Kyle Sloter. Drew Plitt he didn't seem like he's that dude. I don't know what. I don't know if Kyle Sloter, said something about Bob Stoops' hair or isn't getting along with Jay Hayes and Chuck Long. I don't know what, but Drew Plitt did not have a convincing day for me. I was not impressed by Drew Plitt's day. I mean, what about you?
I mean, he only missed on 6 passes, but he just didn't do much with the ball. Had the 1 interception. So, yeah, he needs to just show some more flesh if he wants to keep that job, in my opinion. I think it'll be Sloter's before you know it.
I mean, sure, he had a 76% completion percentage, but only 172 yards on 25 attempts. You need to get the ball down the field more. You need to attack a little bit more.
Yeah,
he's under 7 yards per attempt, and he turned the ball over once. He just didn't seem to get that offense going, and he couldn't get it to guys like Tyler Vaughns and Brandon Arconato, and it was unimpressive. Sal Cannella was exactly who he thought he was going to be, but overall, with Plitt under center, this Renegades offense just seemed stagnant and not able to do anything, and it seemed like they just keyed on the run early. They had a long run of 11, which was a Drew Plitt scramble.
Yeah, until he shows more consistency or Sloter starting, it's going to be hard to trust anybody aside from Sal Cannella among those pass catchers.
Yeah, I mean, Davion Smith and Keith Ford both averaged 2.8 a carry, so nothing exciting there. On the Vipers side of things, Luis Perez had himself a day for fantasy players, but I believe, you and all the other Brian Scott truthers are unimpressed.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was going to eat my words in that first half because he looked good. He looked good that first half, but then it fell apart. He couldn't hold up under pressure, which is one of the things I've criticized of him. Ended up with 3 touchdowns, but one of them was garbage time. They were playing prevent D, so I'm only going to give him 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions there.
I mean, but the 3 touchdowns count. Garbage time matters.
Sure.
And he seemed able to execute the offense. Not a bad day, only a 61% completion percentage, but the 3 turnovers did tag him, but he threw for 250. He got the ball to his playmakers, though. Well, the Vegas run game was non-existent. So I don't know. Woodson needs to get something going out there in Vegas. They need to get something going on the ground, or it's going to be trouble for them before too long. Was there anybody who really stood out for you among the Vegas pass catchers?
Jeff Badette. He showed up in a big way. We were waiting for him to get healthy. We talked about how the talent's there. The health is always the problem, but 6 catches, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. He looked good.
I mean, and Sinkyu Sweeting really stepped up in a big way. 4 targets for 3 catches, 64 yards, but he seems like he's the deep threat in this offense, while Badette, Allison, and Bryan are just going to work the underneath. Martavis Bryant, poor showing, under 50% catch percentage. You got to wonder if Martavis Bryant's going to see some of his snap share eaten into, and then there's did Geronimo Allison actually have a better day because he might have had a 19-yard catch not given into him because it was given to Mr. Harriel. But that's a topic for another day. XFL, get your stats right, please. But overall, an entertaining first game. I was happy from what I saw. And the Renegades defense, we talked about them as being a good unit. If the Renegades offense can get their stuff together, this Renegades defense, and that's a complete team right there.
100% agreed. They didn't look great to begin with, but that second half they made the adjustments and put the pressure on. So yeah, that defense is going to be good.
WynnBET is the official online sportsbook of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. WynnBET is active in a bunch of states, and there are tons of ways to win, including live betting and same-game parlays, aka WynnBETs. Build your own bet. Great promos, odds, and payouts are happening right now at WynnBET. Ready to play? Sign up today to receive a special offer. Bet $100, get $100, limited to state availability. And of course, if you hit the biggest long shot parlay of the week, you get a $1,000 free credit. There's so much to choose from. All you have to do is head over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/wynnbets so they know we sent you. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET. Offer subject to change. Terms and conditions at wynnbet.com. Must be 21 or older. Present in the state where playthrough WynnBET is available. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Yeah, and moving on to the second game on Saturday, we got the Orlando Guardians, Houston Roughnecks. Good. It started off okay, tied at the end of the first quarter, and then Houston just put their foot on Orlando's throat. Orlando was exactly who we thought they were. And Brandon Silvers, not an amazing day. Not a terrible day. He was competent.
Yeah.
I still think Cole McDonald is what is going to unleash that offense. Well, because the 26 for 42, 272, 6.5 yards of completion. It's not like it was or yards an attempt. It's not like it was a phenomenal day. 60%. He was right about 60%, but he didn't add anything with his legs. Cole McDonald comes in, and that offense all of a sudden has a running aspect to it with the quarterback. I think Cole McDonald looked like the dude.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've been backing Cole McDonald since he got assigned to this team. I thought he should be the starter. You got to wonder if they will make a change eventually, but I think he deserves to at least get more snaps than he did.
I mean, and that's going to be the thing. If he's going to get some red zone work, you're going to want to start him over a guy like Paxton Lynch or Quentin Dormady or even, a Drew Plitt. If he's going to get red zone opportunities and find the end zone, 4 rushes, 14 yards, and a touchdown, 7.5 points, that's going to get it done for you. And then also Max Borghi was exactly who we thought he was going to be. 12 touches for about 90 yards. good day for Borgie and a touchdown to boot.
Yeah, I think if he keeps on this track, he's going to end up being one of the best running backs in this league this year, and I'm excited to see it.
I mean, and there were a lot of just target monsters in this Houston offense. Throwing the ball 42 times, topped by Deontay Burnett with 12 targets, Travell Harris with 11, and Jontre Kirkland with 8. Kirkland and Burnett seem like the bona fide 1 and 2 in this offense, and I might give Travell Harris some work as well. But it's clear who the 1 and 2 are right now in this Houston offense, it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a little surprised by Burnett having such a big day, but he showed up, had the second best fantasy wide receiver day of the weekend. So nice to see.
And it's just volume is king. Volume, 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 volume. And I think that that's going to be a big thing moving forward. And it's really good to just know who's going to get the consistent volume. We'll look at this week in and week out where the trends are heading with that. And on the other side of the ball, the Guardians, they were who we thought they'd be. They were a talented group with Cody Latimer leading the way, the converted tight end, the converted wide receiver playing tight end, and they were hamstrung by the god awful quarterback play of Paxton Lynch. 15 for 21, a touchdown and an interception, 136 yards. Quentin Dormady was slightly better, but he threw 2 picks. Neither of these guys are inspiring you right now.
No, not at all. Wonder if we're going to see DeAndre Francois. Cody Latimer had that touchdown that I thought should have been an interception, but he got the points for you. He and
We're not here to be the refs. We're here to win the fantasy.
That's right. He and Sal Cannella, the only tight ends that were really relevant. With how the Guardians looked, are you automatically playing your offensive playmakers against Guardians each week?
Yes. God, yes. I'm looking deep at every playmaking position. But at the same time, garbage time matters as we talk about. Eli Rogers, got some work. Dedrick Thomas got some work. Dedrick Thomas, surprising to me, touched the ball in the passing and the running game. That was interesting to see. And then, but really, Andrew Jameel, Burner taking the top off of things. His day was bumped by a 51-yard reception, but that's great. But Cody Latimer, Andrew Jameel, Eli Rogers, past that, I'm iffy with the Guardians just because they played so many guys. I don't know why they had. I mean, I know they want to get guys on the field, but it's going to be tough if they're going to have that many guys getting targets week in and week out. I mean, they had how many guys? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys get at least 2 targets.
Yeah, that is insane. That's hard to have success in fantasy football if you have one of those guys because they are spreading around so much.
So, and then we got to Sunday, the best crowd of the day, San Antonio really showing that football, they are a football town. The Brahmas came out, the Brahmas showed up, and it was a slow game to start. You could have just tuned in for that fourth quarter and you would have been okay. And kudos to the fans. The fans were in that game from start to finish, despite there being a grand total of 9 points scored in the first 3 quarters. 3 field goals, not an exciting football game, but they were into it the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'd love to see that, especially on week 1. Hopefully it keeps going. But yeah, defensive battle, low offensive scoring until really like the last 4 minutes.
Well, they were drawn huge in the AAF last time around, and they've been kind of the golden nugget, the golden ring for spring leagues. And yeah, I mean, and then that offensive explosion late. I will say though, talking about the Brahmas, Jack Cohn looked like he had the most pro-ready arm out of anybody this weekend. And that includes AJ McCarron. AJ McCarron made his throws. I wasn't surprised by that. Jack Cohn stepped out on that field, and I was like, this dude can play. Like the way the ball was zipping off his hand, the way it was arriving with pace on time. It was high at times, and that he's just overclocking it a little bit. But if he can clean that up, I'm very interested to see what this Brahmas offense looks like against maybe not as tough a defense as the Battlehawks.
Yeah, I agree. A couple of the guys on the XFL Gambling podcast naysaying his day a little bit because of a 5.8 average, but he had to get it out quick because that Battlehawks defense was on him quickly. I thought he looked really good. I was very surprised with how Jack Cohn looked because I had low expectations, but I thought he did very well. I'm excited to see how he can build on that game and make some bigger plays.
I mean, they were plagued by drops. I mean, Jalen Tolliver, they're only dropped the ball twice. They had just had drops. They had like 8, 9 drops there, and that just killed him because it seemed like he was hitting guys in the hand consistently. But a guy like Landon Akers was just consistently working open. There was that joke that he was the budget Cooper Cup, but damn if he didn't look like the budget Cooper Cup. 7 catches, 35 yards. I think if this Brahma's offensive line can give Cohn more time and Jalen Tolliver can cure his dropsies, I'm interested to see where this team goes. But they were another team that spread the ball around. Fred Brown with 4 targets, Jalen Tolliver with 5, Kalen Balaj with 4, Landon Akers with 7, Travis Johnson with 3, and Elise Mack with 5.
Yeah. Yeah. The Akers thing, it's interesting because somebody's gonna say, well, he only had 35 yards, but in alt fantasy, points are sometimes at a premium. So 7 catches, 7 points in a PPR league, that could be do very well for you. That could win a match.
And I think part of that was just the Battlehawks defense was both defensive lines were getting after the quarterback. Jack Cohn was flushed from the pocket, and I don't think we'll see that as often, And although he was only sacked twice, he was flushed out the pocket many, many more times than that. And I think that as that offensive line gels, that'll get better for them, and they also benefited. They established a solid run game. Kalen Balaj looked good. He looked like he belongs on an NFL roster.
The thing that stood out to me,
27 touches. 27 touches. That is an ungodly number.
It is.
And what's crazy is Jaquez Patrick still had 11. They're both going to get work. Jaquez Patrick and Kalen Balaj both need to be started every week.
Yeah, agreed. It surprised me coming from a Hines Ward offense to see them running the ball so much. But the thing that stood out to me with Kalen Balaj is he read the defense well for the quarterback. He was pointing out the blitzers, pointing out the mic, picking up. And because of that, you're going to see him on the field more often, which is good for your fantasy team.
Well, and they also, they ran 77 plays versus only 42 for the Battlehawks. They were on the field. They were sustaining drives. They just weren't able to finish them.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, Jack Cohn, I love to see it, and then talking about the Battlehawks, AJ McCarron took his time getting there, but once they opened up that playbook, damn, look at him go.
Yeah, for sure. Very slow start for him, but definitely turned around and played like kind of we thought he would. That's the experience. I feel like the experience showing through that he can make the adjustments, see what he needs to do differently in the second half, and make it work.
I wonder if they didn't, putting more receivers on the field wasn't what really did it for him. And I think they might have been a little too run heavy early, but even because they just didn't run a ton of plays. They had 15 run plays and 26 pass plays. They ran 42 offensive snaps. That's not enough. That was the lowest by far in the entire XFL. And late, they looked unstoppable once they had Butler, Prohl, Shepard, and Jordan Thomas, Marcel Aitman. Once they were putting their playmakers on the field, they were looking pretty good. Almost unstoppable at times.
For sure. I was happy to see Austin Prohl get his. I talked about him a little bit in the preseason on the pod. I just, with having his dad as the wide receiver coach, I thought they were going to have some plays drawn up for him, and that 3-point conversion looked like it was drawn up just for him.
And then closing it out, we had an exciting game in DC on the turf.
With lemons on the turf.
With lemons on the turf, rightfully so. Security came for the beer snake and they said, you can take it from our cold, lemony hands. And they had thoughts for it.
Yeah. I don't know if I've seen something like that in football before, but it was definitely exciting. I don't know why you're taking the beer snake away. They're known for it. just let him have it. I don't get it.
I mean, do you feel like the wrong team won this game though?
100%. 100%. The Sea Dragons looked like the better team throughout the majority of the game. Couple turnovers, mistakes that should have been avoided, but yeah, when you get beat by a team that only threw for 93 yards and 9 completions out of 21 attempts, you should have won the game. But the defense showed up for the defenders.
Yeah, I mean, Danucci can't turn the ball over twice. 2 picks is
Mhm.
brutal, and you can't, 3 times even for Danucci, 2 picks and a fumble. But Danucci looked like, he had a command of the offense outside of those interceptions. And they were moving the ball up and down the field. And we have another 2 surprising receivers with Ja'Cory Patterson and Blake Jackson. I don't know that anybody had those guys pacing this offense. We all thought it was going to be Juwan Green.
Yeah, and Pearson with 14 targets and 12 catches.
Whew.
Unbelievable.
For 95 yards. Josh Gordon looked good, had a touchdown, 9 targets, 6 catches, 74 yards. That was big. And Blake Jackson, 11 targets, 8 catches, 51. Seattle was running their receivers out there. They were running the air raid, but they weren't spreading it around. Ben DiNucci knows who he's going to. He knows where his bread is buttered, and he's going to make it happen.
Absolutely. And if you're lucky to have one of those top guys in that offense, they're going to continue to just sling that ball.
Ja'Cory Pearson might be on your waiver wire. Go get him ASAP.
Absolutely agree.
So, and then the defenders, just Jordan Ta'amu, I don't know what was up. No, that's a lie. We know what's up. We said he might struggle because they didn't have big receivers with a catch radius. And that's when he was at his most successful. Ever since that St. Louis team, he's struggled to be successful.
Yep. I am a Tamu doubter. Everybody probably knows that. And I don't think he's a consistent quarterback, especially with, like you said, smaller receivers, a run game that's only getting a 2.5 average. He's not going to get the job done that way.
No, I mean, they need to figure something out in DC. DC needs to figure out a way to push the ball down the field and open it up for Abram Smith and Raquel Armstead. Otherwise, they're just going to be hoping and praying that the defense carries them through because, Seattle was in a position to win that game last night. And stop me if you've heard this one before, Ben DiNucci threw a pick.
Yeah.
Ben DiNucci fumbled. Sorry, Ben DiNucci fumbled. Ben DiNucci turned it over is the long and short of it because he got down, they got down to the goal line. They were there ready to win it, but DiNucci just couldn't hold on to the ball. And it looked like it was a little slippery and wet there in DC, but field conditions are going to be a thing. And you gotta hold on to the ball, got to protect the chalupa at the end of the day.
It was all lemony.
It was all lemony. So it might have been slippery, but it smelled fresh.
That's right.
As we're looking ahead to next week, the games we got, how are you feeling looking at some of these games next week in these matchups?
I mean, you're going to want to start your Brahmas because they're playing the Guardians. So I think Jack Cohn could take that step forward and have a really good day. That's something I'm kind of excited to see him do. And then just seeing, I mean, we got Thursday night football, Battlehawks Sea Dragons in Seattle. I'm excited to see what that crowd looks like.
I mean, I'm hopeful that we get to see a big time. I'd like a shootout here. I'd like the Battlehawks to keep that offense open and just really turn it loose. Who's the guy? So let's just talk, who's a guy on each team that you're really paying attention to this week? So on the Battlehawks, who's a guy you're really paying attention to that you're looking at, making sure you get in your lineups?
Brian Hill, I think he ran hard, and I like how he plays. I was high on him going into the season, and I think they're going to continue to get him involved. Even when they are throwing the ball often, I think they're going to keep getting Hill involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think the running game is going to be there, but I think you got to have a plan to get Marcel Aitman, Hakeem Butler, or Austin Proehl on your roster. It's very likely one of them is available in your league. go get the St. Louis receivers because I think they're going to be valuable. I think they're going to get targets. Butler and Aitman are both big physical guys who McCarron will look to in the end zone. And I still think Jordan Thomas is going to be a dude in this league. I think one target was an anomaly for him. I think it's going to ratchet up next week against a tougher Dragons defense.
For sure. And then on Seattle's side, I thought Morgan Ellison looked pretty good. He didn't get a lot of playing time, but every time he touched the ball out of that backfield, and running backs are going to be so hard. We're already finding out he's most likely out there because I mean, I looked in several leagues that I'm in. He's out there on the waivers. So I would definitely consider that, especially as a pass catching back and just somebody who's going to catch the ball out of the backfield and run hard. I like what I saw out of him.
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to get 6, 7, 8 touches a game, he's a guy you need to roster, especially if he's going to get some work around the goal line, which he did this past week. I mean, and again, we talked about it. It looks like there's a top 3 in Seattle with Pearson, Gordon, and Blake Jackson, but you also might look at either Kelvin McKnight and Jordan Vesey. Both of those guys were involved, 6 and 4 targets respectively. One of them will most likely emerge as the consistent 4th option. So just make sure you have one of them. Have a dog in this fight. In an air raid offense, you want pieces. You want pieces of all 4 receivers in spring football.
Agreed.
And then we take Friday off, and Saturday night, we've got the DC Defenders and the Vegas Vipers. DC, like we talked about, this offense needs to get it together. This is atrocious. Ta'amu cannot have a week like he had last week because he didn't even run the ball effectively. The offense looked better when De'Aaron King came into the game, and De'Aaron King got conversions for them. He was making plays with his legs, and I wonder if we don't see more De'Aaron King because the Vipers can move the ball up and down the field, and Luis Perez, as much as we like to joke about him, I don't know that he's going to turn the ball over 3-4 times, especially in what's probably going to be good weather in Vegas.
Yeah, for sure. Derek King's somebody that if he's available and I have a roster spot, I'm going to throw him on there because I think we're going to see more of him sooner rather than later. And he has some elite speed. So that's definitely a playmaker quarterback that you could throw in, especially when you got guys like Plitt getting less than 10 points.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that Lucky Jackson is the receiver to roster in DC. You're keeping an eye at how everything else is going to shake out because Josh Malone, 4 targets, 1 catch. Ethan Wolf, 4 targets, 1 catch. Lots of guys got targets but didn't produce with them. And I don't know if that's Ta'amu throwing the ball or just the offense as a whole. So I think it's Lucky Jackson and the running backs, and that's about all you're looking to start in DC.
Agree.
And then as we cross to the other side of that field, Vegas, love him, hate him. Luis Perez slung the rock. He got it to his playmakers, and they made plays. You got to be all aboard the Perez train, especially after you watched Ben DiNucci throw for almost 300 yards. Second week, offense clicking, and Vegas has receivers to take advantage of what looks like a suspect Defenders defense.
And you have to imagine Perez is going to keep trying to push to impress because Huntley, as soon as he gets that playbook learned, is going to be on his heels. The guy here I'm looking, especially at waivers, you already mentioned him, Cinque Sweeting, really showed up and 4 targets, 3 catches, 64 yards, and a touchdown. He's not a guy I saw get drafted a lot. So that's somebody, if I'm looking at waivers, I'm definitely looking towards him.
Yeah, I might also go Matthew Sexton. 5 targets, only 2 catches. But if they're going to run 3-4 wideouts and they're going to be doing that consistently, bites at the apple. You need bites at the apple. And we're waiting to see if Rod Smith and John Lovett can show up.
Right.
The Vegas run game was non-existent. They were somewhat involved in the passing game, but it wasn't there.
Yeah, agree. And until it is, they're going to keep having to sling that ball. So, like you said, get a piece of this passing offense.
Yeah. So heading into Sunday, 4:00 Eastern, great Sunday afternoon game between the Brahmas and the Guardians. And, let's talk about this Orlando team, because it's just, we got to be wondering, what's it going to look like? Are we going to see Lynch, Dormady, or is Francois going to get some run?
Yeah, I'm waiting to see Francois. I thought he was the best quarterback on that team, but likely they're going to go with a Lynch Dormady combo again. And so I just don't know if I trust many people. But Andrew Jamil is somebody that I saw on most of the waiver wires in the leagues that I'm in. So that's somebody I'm looking at. Like you said, burner speed. He had that 51-yard play, got a touchdown. So big plays can win you, especially in spring football.
Yeah, I mean, Charleston Rambo also 6 targets, nice volume, wasn't pushing it down the field, but that could just be because of the passers. But I'm also keeping an eye on Jermaine Martin, had a good day, 10 touches for 42 yards, didn't get into the end zone, but that's okay. He was involved in the game. 10 touches is someone who you got to start week in and week out. And he's someone who has breakaway speed. And, we saw him in 2019 at A&T just have an absolutely beastly year. Came back in 2022. He got pushed a little bit more by a new guy, got hurt, but still has that ability, has that talent. He's a guy I'm definitely keeping in my roster. I'm not bailing on him. I think I got to stay in on Jermaine Martin, for the long haul.
Agreed, and I liked how he ran too. He ran the ball hard every time he had it. You thought he could break tackle, get a couple more yards. You'd love to see that because it all adds up.
Yeah, and on the other side of the ball, just Jack Cohn, I think he's going to be a dude. He's slinging the rock well. He was plagued by a lot of drops by his team there, and you can't put that on him at the end of the day. At the end of the day, your receivers got to catch the ball. It's not on you if they're dropping it because you're hitting them in the hands. There were a lot. Jalen Tolliver had like 2 or 3 that hit him in the hands and bounced off. He's moving. He's pushing the ball hard. I think against this Guardians defense, which isn't that good, and we just saw the Roughnecks carve up, Jack Cohn could be in for a big game. I think he might be. I think he's my like QB2 this week, in all honesty.
Yeah, I agree. And this is a guy where, he only scored 9.28 points. It's not too early to make a trade or trade offer for somebody who has Jack Cohn and maybe thinking, well, that was disappointing. I'm going to try something different. Offer a trade for him. Another guy I'm watching because tight ends are just so hard to nail down in spring football. Elise Mack did not have a big game, only 3 catches, 9 yards, but he did have 5 targets. And I think they're going to keep looking to get him involved.
Yeah, I back that up 100%. And, they got the tight ends involved, and a big receiver is a young quarterback's best friend. And Kalen Ballage and Jacquez Patrick seem like they are what makes that offense go. Both of them need to be started in your lineups every week.
Agreed.
So, and then capping it off, what do we got on Sunday night? Talk to us there, Justin.
Yeah, the Renegades and the Roughnecks, 2 really good defenses if the Renegades show up like they did in the second half there. So this one might be a bit of a defensive battle, but I'm still excited to see it. Stoops, Phillips, it should be a really good matchup. Both good coaches, both experienced coaches.
And who are you looking at for Houston? As I'm just looking at it, I think about Brandon Silvers. I still think Cole McDonald is the answer in that offense because I think that he brings an element that Silvers just can't. And I think but Silvers is capable, and
Yeah.
you got to have him in your lineup. And at the same time, Max Borghi is going to make that offense go, but it's the top 3 receivers, John Terrell Kirkland, Travell Harris, and Deontay Burnett are the dudes. It's a very clear-cut top 3 right now in Houston.
Absolutely. And Burnett's a guy that stood out to me, a guy that's a fan of XFL Gambling Podcast, everything we do here. He used to be a Houston coach, used to coach a guy that's on the Roughnecks. And the guy said Burnett really stood out every practice. So I think they're going to keep feeding him the ball. Definitely somebody you want to try to have on your roster.
Yeah. And on the other side of the ball in this battle of Texas, Drew Plitt, the day's got to be numbered for him. I'm not panicking if I have Kyle Sloter on my roster. If it's possible, I'm holding him. And I'm just waiting because Drew Plitt can't hand in another game like that.
100% agreed. This is going to be Slaughter's team before long, I think.
Yeah. And I think the guy that I'm really looking at there, Brandon Arconato, only had 3 catches for 32, but 5 targets. It's going to be there. The work is going to be there for him. He just needs to be patient, especially if Slaughter gets his hands on this offense.
Agreed.
That's a guy that I'm waiting for this Arlington offense to get turned over to its rightful quarterback and see what it actually looks like.
100%. Him and Tyler Vaughn's both good options here. And they didn't have big games. So it's going to be guys that somebody's down on. Maybe they drop them, or maybe you can get them in a trade. So definitely guys to keep your eye on.
Yeah, and I think the big thing to keep in mind is just, as we're looking at this, we're looking at Houston really having a big game, 270 yards through the air. As we're just thinking about our projections that we've kind of looked at, Luis Perez is currently penciled in as our QB1 via projections. Silver's QB2, DiNucci, McCarron, Cone, but Perez is kind of on an island by himself right now with that defender's defense coming to town. And then there's the mid-tier guys, and then there's everybody else, which is, Drew Plitt doesn't even rank above Jordan Ta'amu and Derek King, who are in a timeshare right now. That's got to be concerning for Arlington.
Absolutely agree. And that's why they got to give the keys to Slaughter soon. I don't know why they didn't to begin with, unless there's a health issue we don't know about.
Mm-hmm. And then just looking at the running backs, there's only 2 guys right now that we think are going to be double digits. That's Balaj and Borghi. Brendan Knox knocking on the door, Morgan Ellison, Davion Smith. There's a big crop of guys in that 3.5 to 8 point range. So, running back is tight right now. If there's a guy who's going to touch the ball 6-7 times, he needs to be rostered.
Yeah, absolutely. In a lot of the leagues I'm in, I saw some people grumbling about how their first pick only got them a point or whatever, but it's going to all start coming together. These guys are going to make some plays, so be patient on your players that you think are letting you down, and just keep your eyes on some of those that the work is there. Maybe the yards weren't, but it'll all come together.
Yeah, and prioritize receivers. You got to have receivers, and more receivers. And
Absolutely.
Sal Cannell is keeping with our trend of a tight end being a top receiving option in spring football.
And rightly so. I mean, he looked like he did last year in the USFL, took over, led the team in catches, yards. I think that's only going to go up if Slaughter can get in there because they have that connection already.
Yeah. All right, Justin, any final thoughts as we get ready for the waivers on waiver wire on week 2?
Don't bail on your guys too soon. Pay attention to the targets. And yeah, it was a fun week 1. It was fun to see it all come together, and I'm looking forward to week 2.
Awesome. That is Brian Scott's biggest fan, Justin Mark. I'm Adam Pelletier, and we will see you next time.
Nova Production.